Good morning. Today we are doing our last lesson on slope, mission 3C. It says I can find and interpret slope. So first we're going to start out with a quick review. Remember, slope is the angle of our line, either going up from left to right or down from left to right. If we're going to walk up this line, we are doing just that, walking up, which would be a positive slope. And we can also count that slope, counting, remember, rise over run, meaning counting up and down first, then left to right. We like to think of this as our elevator. Our elevator from one point to the next goes straight up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units up. And then we have to get out of our elevator and go over 1, 2, 3, 4. So our slope is 5 over 4. Always leave your slope as a fraction. Our second line, starting on the left, we would be walking downhill, so this is a negative slope. So our elevator is going to be going down 1, 2, 3. So down is just like we said, negative, and then over 1, 2, negative 3 over 2. If you have numbers that could be simplified, make sure you do simplify. However, these two we can't simplify. Remember also, if you count a negative slope, we should have a negative sign there. If we have a positive slope, our answer should be positive. So we're going to learn a second way to find slope today. We're going to plot our points and count the slope, and then we're going to use a slope formula that I will teach you to see, do we get the same answer without even having to graph it. So let's start by plotting our 2 points, x, y. Our first point, x is 2, so 2 to the right on the x-axis, and y is 3, so up 3. And then our second point is 4, 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4 to the right, and up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oops, right there. So we have our 2 points. We could count, if we draw our line through those points, count rise over run. We would be going up 1, 2, and over 1, 2. So 2 divided by 2, if we simplify this, is really 1 over 1, or just 1. Now we have another way we can use or count slope. Pretend that we weren't given this graph, and we were just given these 2 points and this formula. Well, this formula has to do with our x's and our y's, as you can see, but there are these little 1's and 2's. Now, where do those come from? Well, since this point right here is our first point, we just give that x a 1 and that y a 1. That's our first x and our first y. Then this point over here is our second point, so we would give that our second x and our second y. So that's really all those mean. We call this x sub 1 and y sub 2. So we're going to look for y2 first. y2 is right here. y2 is really the number 5. So if m, which is our slope, is 5 minus, because that's what the equation says, minus y1, which is 3. Then on the bottom of our fraction, we're looking for our x's now. x2 minus x1. x2 is 4 minus x1, which is 2. Now if you notice, we had both of our y's in the top, which makes sense because when we find our slope, rise over run, when we counted it on our graph, rise was going up and down. That's really our change in our y's. How much did we go up and down? And then run was left to right, and that's our x-axis. How much did we go left to right? So we're really just using the numbers to figure out how much did we go up and down and left to right. So if we simplify this, 5 minus 3 is 2. 4 minus 2 is 2. Same thing we got over here. So we could simplify that, and our slopes would be the same, 1 over 1. Let's practice this on the backside using our slope formula. First thing we always want to do is label our points with x's and y's. So x, y, that's my first point. X, y, that's my second point. So let's plug in what we know. First we're looking for y2. y2 is the number 4. Then we have minus y1, and y1 is the number 1. Then on the bottom, x is x2, which is 6, minus x1, which is 2. Notice I'm putting them in the same spots as they show up in our equation. So 4 minus 1 is 3, 6 minus 2 is 4, so my slope is 3/4, or 3 over 4. From those 2 points, we would have gone up 3 and over 4. Let's try again. X, y, first point, x, y, second point, and plug them into our slope formula. First, y2 minus y1, so we have -3 minus 6. And then on the bottom, x2 minus x1, we have -8 minus 9. Now be careful with this. -3 minus 6, they're all negatives. We have a total of -9. And then down here, -8 minus 9, again, all negatives. -8 minus 9, same sign, add and keep. 8 plus 8 is 16. One more is 17, so we have 17 negatives. And we know 2 negatives really make a positive when we multiply and divide. So our slope is 9/17. If we could simplify that, we would, but we can't simplify 17. It's a prime number. We can't divide it by anything other than 1. All right, 2 more. I'm going to label my points x, y. This is my first point. X, y, this is my second point. And plug them into our equation that we have right here. So first, y2 minus y1, we have 2 minus 2 on the top. And on the bottom, x2 minus x1, make sure we follow the same pattern. 4 minus 3. So 2 minus 2 is 0. 4 minus 3 is 1. So our slope is 0 divided by 1, which is really just 0. Remember, if the 0 is on the top, it's okay. Our slope is 0. If the 0 is on the bottom, no, it's not okay. That would be a slope that is undefined, or a vertical line. But ours is okay, so it's a slope of 0. Last one, and we need to be extra careful on this one. Let's label our points x1, y1. It's our first point. xy, second point. Now, the reason we have to be careful on this one is because of our negatives. We have first y2 minus y1. So we have 2 minus, because we have the equation minus, a -4. So this -4 came from here. This negative came from here. So those 2 negatives really make a positive. Then same thing with the next one, x2 minus x1. So we really have 5 minus a -3. Those 2 negatives make a positive. So 2 plus 4 is 6. 5 plus 3 is 8. And we can actually simplify this fraction. We can divide by 2. And our slope is really going to be 3 over 4 if we simplify. So be careful with those negatives, because our equation says we're subtracting, but if we're subtracting a negative, it really makes a positive. And the last 2 points here. xy first point, xy second point. If you want to try this one on your own, that might be a good idea to practice. So we have y2 minus y1, so 4 minus 6. Then the second one, x2 minus x1 on the bottom, -1 minus 3. Well, 4 minus 6, there's more negatives than positives, so we have a -2 if we subtract. -1 minus 3, same sign, add and keep, all negatives. 2 negatives make a positive, so our slope is 2/4, but we can simplify. So we really have 1 over 2, a slope of 1/2. So on our graph, we would have gone up 1 and over 2. Last point, this one looks tricky with zeros. Let's check it out. Oops, this is second point, they get 2's. So first, y2 minus y1, so 0 minus 6. Then on the bottom, x2 minus x1, so 10 minus 0. Well, this one actually turned out to be nice. 0 take away 6 is -6. 10 minus nothing is 10. So our slope is -6 over 10, but we can simplify that. we can divide by 2. So we have negative 3 over 5, or negative 3/5. This is the same slope we would count if we were to plot these 2 points on a graph and count rise over run. So your homework is just like this. You need to pick 2 points on the line and find the slope using the slope formula for the first couple, or you can just count rise over run for the first few. But all of these ones, there's no graph. You need to use the slope formula. That's right here.